Okay. Hello, everyone. You are at the Swan Circulation Advisory Users Group meeting, and we are going to get started here. Just want to let you know who you're talking to. I am Crystal Vella. I am the UX consultant. In case any of you haven't met me yet, for our visitors here. And my co-chair is Sam. Sam, you want to say hi?
Yep. Hi, everybody. I'm Sam Deedle. I'm a bibliographic services consultant, and as Crystal said, I'm co-chair of this advisory group.
So before we get into the introductions of our members, I just want to touch base very quickly on where you can find future meetings. So if you're on our SWAN website, you're going to go into meetings and trainings and you'll see all of the user groups here. And whichever one you're looking for will be labeled. And once you go into it, you'll see the meeting dates. And when you click on the actual date for the meeting you're interested in, you'll get the information. And this is where you register for the GoToWebinar. There's a few questions this morning, so I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows how to get to our meetings and all that jazz. Okay, so I'm gonna go around and kind of just ask some of the advisory members who are here right now just to say hello and kind of tell everybody where you're from. Let me get back to this agenda. So can we start with, oh, we have a few questions. Debbie Sheehan is still muted. Can somebody unmute her? And Tom needs to be unmuted again too.
They got me.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, Tom, hey, here you are.
Hello, good morning.
Start with you.
I'm Tom Webb. I am from the Matson Area Public Library District.
Thank you. Let's go now to whoever wants to jump in. You guys just jump in as you want.
I'm Debbie Sheehan. I'm from Indian Prairie Library.
Debbie Sheehan, thank you.
I'm Christine Sporletter. I'm from the Bloomingdale Library.
Hi, I'm Sandra Leyva from the Alsip Library.
Hey, Sandra.
Hi, I'm Sue Feddersen from the Bensonville Library.
Hey, Sue.
Hi, I'm Peggy Tomzik from Eisenhower Public Library.
Hi, Peggy. Thanks for joining us.
Victoria from River Forest Public Library.
Hey, Victoria.
Stephanie DeYoung from Batavia Public Library.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for joining in with us.
Okay. Jerry King from Carroll Stream Public Library.
Yay, Jerry. I didn't see your name. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for coming.
So if you guys are waiting to jump in, if you could mute yourselves and then just unmute yourself when you want to jump in, because we are getting a little bit of background noise.
Okay. Thank you all for introducing yourselves. And I'm going to go ahead. We are missing right now Brittany. She's informed me she's from the Westmont Library and she will jump in a little bit later. So I am going to hand off the reins here to Helen Pinder from Swan. She's going to talk about this missing hold shelf user. This topic came up in a previous meeting. And kind of what we need to do with our items that are in this generic user. So the missing hold shelf user is basically the things that have gone poof, disappeared off of your hold shelf. So you would use this user, check this out, to this user, and then they've kind of just sat here. So you guys have been given a little bit of homework. We sent a report to you, and you're then asked to look at your shelves and see what you can find. So I'm going to pass the reins off to Helen, and I'm going to stay quiet and do what she tells me to do for a minute. Okay. Helen, it's all yours.
Thank you, Crystal. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. My name is Helen Pinder. I am the resource sharing consultant here at SWAN. And yeah, the missing on hold shelf user. I'm so sorry. I just had my son run in right behind me as I was all ready to start talking and threw me way off. Missing on hold shelf user. So those of you with open air hold shelf are really the only ones that are using this. A handful of you guys, I mean, things can go missing, but they typically don't. So if something disappears on your hold shelf, you check it out to this missing on hold shelf user. And it came up a couple of months ago what to do with them. And so we reported, and Crystal, if you could jump over to that. Yeah. So we ran a report of checkouts by year and then checkout library, item library, to see if there was any one library that seemed to be having stuff go missing from their shelves more than any other. And the data is pretty clear that no, there doesn't seem to be any pattern of abuse. It's so sporadic. It's just things go poof from time to time. And sometimes they come back in the bags or they're discovered on shelf, and sometimes obviously they don't and they stay there, as is evidenced by that first column with the 2017 checkouts. So what we'd like to do is develop a recommendation for discarding those. And we thought that the best thing to model them off of was the missing in transit user. So things that were checked in but never made it home to their home library, to the shelf, because it's in our minds functionally the same. These are things that disappeared and they're not checked out to a user. They just poofed, to continue with the theme. So what we'd like to do is start having you guys shelf check the checkouts to the missing on hold shelf user. And that's just a monthly monthly shelf check report. You would check your library's items as well as the checkout library. So you get 2 reports. But again, if you look at those numbers, those shelf checklists are not going to have a lot on them, like ever. So just add that to your shelf check process. If you find something, super, check it in. Otherwise, if it sits in that user for, I think we said 12 months. Dawn, if I imagined that 12 months and it was something different, please jump in. That it would just be moved to discard, and it would just be discarded after 1 year. If it hasn't turned up after a year, we'll just make it go away. So that's our recommendation, and a little bit of the background. How many of you found items from your homework assignment?
I didn't find any.
Okay,
This is Debbie.
Debbie, how many items were on your list?
I had 19 on the item library shelf check version, and $18 on the checkout library shelf check version.
Okay.
Yeah, we didn't find any.
Yeah, Bloomingdale had, I don't remember the number that we started with. I think it was probably about a dozen. We did find one.
Okay.
It was our item on our shelf. So that was nice to find that one, I guess.
I love it when things come home. or turn up at home. Anybody else?
Eisenhower didn't find any on either list.
Batavia
Bensenville
found a
did-
bunch.
Okay.
Bensenville did not find any on either list.
Tom, Victoria, did you find any?
We found
So,
one. Oh,
Okay, Victoria, you guys found one
yes.
at River Forest? Okay, great. And Tom, what about you?
so this is maybe embarrassing is not the right word, but unfortunately, Matson had to shut down. We've been shut down for over a week. Today is the first day that we're reopening. So we had just started to think about this project, this homework assignment, when that happened. So we actually have not had
Okay.
a chance to do that.
Okay.
I
Well,
think
it
you got
seems like there's a bit of a mix, right, Helen, here?
Yeah. kind of all over the
Mhm.
map.
So what we'll do is, well, let's ask this question of Helen real quick. So are we suggesting that we do not reimburse, right? No one's going to be
Correct.
billed for these items.
Correct.
It's just kind of a wash, a cost of doing business. Sometimes things walk away.
Yeah, sometimes things walk away, just like sometimes things go poof in transit. Sometimes things go poof from the hold shelf.
I will say, I agree with that, but I'm going to have to take that back to my selectors because I will get pushback on that, because I don't think that some people consider it a transit, because we've basically lent that item to that library with the expectation of getting it back. And when it goes missing off their hold shelf, I think our selectors feel that that library should be responsible, because the items that we currently have on our list are not, they're not low price items. They're video games and stuff like that that would, that cost us $50, $60 to replace. So, I mean, I'm in agreement with that, but I'm going to have to take that to my administrator and my selectors, because that was kind of the thing that spurred this whole conversation at Bloomingdale is, I don't have the money in my budget to replace this $60 video game that we lent out one time and never saw again. Like, what is this account that it's checked out to? And so I feel like I'm going to get some pushback from our selectors on their budgets about that.
I think part of the rationale that we used for not reimbursing for these items is we didn't want to drive down compliance. If something goes disappearing,
Yeah, for sure.
We want it checked out to this user. We want it to have that accurate information.
Yeah. Like I said, I am 100% in agreement.
Yeah.
I'm just saying I am envisioning some pushback from our administration on that.
Yeah, no, totally. I get that.
So I'm just going to bring it to that. Like I said, I personally am in 100% agreement, but I foresee that potentially being something that, like I said, my administrator and my selectors are not going to be super happy with.
Yeah, understandable.
The rationale of not billing is based on the fact that it was on your hold shelf, so your staff have handled that item before it went disappearing. So that's kind of like trying to find exactly what is the responsible party that last touched that item. So I think that's why we were looking at that.
Yeah, and it's not checked out to a person, so it's harder to pin down that culpability.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we did think of long and hard about this.
And I kind of think with Pickup Anywhere, it might not have even been your patron that had it on hold. And it might not be your patron that made it go missing.
Yeah.
All true.
And I know when we first
created this patron too. It was definitely not just for the open hold shelves. It was for everyone to use, just so we kind of kept track of where things last were, especially just trying to make sure that things didn't stay stuck in transit when they had just not been found on your hold shelf when it was time to clear them off. So Dawn's right. I think the idea behind not billing was to encourage everyone to use it. There were libraries who voiced an opinion saying that not everyone was using it and they didn't want to get billed if other people weren't going to use it.
Yeah.
And we're all about accurate locations.
I agree not charging, but I would like to really stress how we can, what I really like to know is how we can really stress the other libraries to check their shelves when this report comes out. We don't have an open hold shelf. We don't need to use this too often. We do, but it's rare. But I found a lot of our stuff missing from other shelves, and I'm okay with it. I get it. It's the cost of doing business, but you know, I just want to make sure other libraries are checking the report. I mean, even yesterday we had called the library just about checking their shelf for a patron who said they returned something, and they told us they couldn't get back to us for a few days because they didn't know when their shelver would get in. So I'm just worried, you know, with staff being down, that people aren't going to be checking these reports.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with any of the reports that we send out for shelf checking, there's always an instance in which a library won't comply or won't be able to do something like that, and have to time out their scheduling to adhere to this accordingly. Helen, what were your thoughts on when you would send this out? Because so far we've only sent it out to the CERC advisory group members. But this would obviously be something that goes out to the entire consortia, right, Helen?
Yes, not this one that's on the screen now, but the ones that you guys received, those neater shelf check formatted versions. We can send those at any time. I hesitate to add more work during these curious upside down times. But I don't know, what do you all think? Do you think people, I mean, apart from that one library that gave you some pushback about staffing concerns, do you think more or less people are able to get into their stacks okay and do these checks?
I mean, it's sort of my opinion that if this is going to be the cost of doing business, then this goes along with that. Like if there doesn't want to be a billing situation, then people need to be looking for these items. Because I think it's just, I mean, it's part, I mean, this, and I understand that like maybe there's a stacks issue and we can work around that. But, you know, if we're, I mean, with these items, they have to be looked for.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, if not billing is the cost of doing business, then kind of looking for these items and using the staff time to try and find some of these items is also, you know, kind of goes along with that.
Yeah, good point. So should we add these to the Miss Transit deliveries and just start sending those out monthly?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that's a good time frame, because you figure if it didn't get checked out or if it was just missing somewhere or it got taken by a patron, you figure maybe by the end of 30 days it would have shown back up and gone through checkout and quarantine more than likely. So I feel like that monthly is a good benchmark for that.
Okay. And then a year passes if a patron does happen to have it and thinks that it's auto renewing, but eventually does return it, it would still land back in the system. Okay, so we'll shelf check at 1 month and discard at 1 year. Does that work for everybody?
Works.
And,
I
Yeah,
think
I think that's fine.
and Helen,
think
that
that-
would just fit into our ongoing processes. So libraries wouldn't be getting 2 reports. They would just get their 1 report monthly for the missing in transit, which would include these as well, that they
Correct.
could delineate the difference between. So you're not hunting through 2 reports every month.
It's 2 reports they get done. One is the item library and one is checkout library. So but
Right,
they get
but
them on the
it-
same day, right?
Right, but they
rather
wouldn't
than going
be
to
getting
4,
4
right.
reports.
Mhm.
I like all this because it's very consistent with what we're already doing.
That's what I was going for, Peggy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Like everyone should already be doing these other reports. So
Right.
yeah.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Just for clarification, which report are you combining this with?
The missing in transit reports.
Not the 10 to 30 days, but the other ones? Or is it the 10 to 30 days?
I don't have the transit reports in front of me. We'll
We
send
can do
something.
We can do it to all if you want. If you want to be checking before the 30 days. The missing in transit, you get your weekly report, and that is anything that's been in transit for 10 to 31 days.
Yeah, I guess my question with that is if we're combining it with that, do we also want to question the time frame on that given the 7-day quarantine period?
Our recommendation when that was brought up earlier was not to adjust the timing on those reports that are already scheduled, but to just use the dates on them and not check everything. So you can adjust for the 7-day quarantine by just not going back to the beginning of that report.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Before we fully move on, I just want to address, I don't think anyone was looking at the questions here, and it looks like Julie Lombardo posted a few comments. She said her connection's really bad today, so she's not sure. Are you saying we will or will not reimburse for lost holds? If no, I think you will be seeing more and more collections going to non-holdable. She also says, I think that there are libraries who will not even check for these missing items, as is the current practice, because there's no billing to worry about. So just sharing those thoughts that Julie had.
I just want to stress that, as we all work together and think about best practice, I know that we will constantly be on the lookout for those outliers and the bad players, but I think overall we're a pretty collaborative and honest group of people. So I hate to build procedures and recommended workflows around bad players.
I think over the long term, it will be pretty apparent if that occurs. Like they figure since there's no consequence in billing that they're not even going to look. I feel like over time that's going to be apparent and then that can be addressed on an individual library basis instead of making a rule for like the 1% that will abuse it instead of the 99% that will follow it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And we are perfectly willing and feel it is our obligation to have those conversations with libraries. So anytime those problems are brought to our attention, we do have those conversations.
Okay, is there anyone else that wanted to jump in on this topic? Okay, I think it's safe to say we can move on. The next agenda topic is training development. And I kind of just wanted to give you all a little behind the scenes look at some new training that we have been developing. It's quite different from the things we have done in the past. So this is not done yet. So I just want to put that out there. But this is kind of what we're looking at. We've decided to go with a new platform here to kind of be able to build out a more collaborative type of training. So as opposed to just, doing a kind of show and tell, we can incorporate some real life scenarios, and we can incorporate some actual quizzes and things like that. So the course I'm working on currently is this patron management class, and I'm just going to preview this for you all really quickly. We're able to embed videos and things like that. And what's great about this is also, this is something you would theoretically be able to give to a new staff member, and they can, go through the trainings. Right now, we do have this set to this desktop format, but this platform supports different types of media. So you can do this on a tablet, you can do this on a mobile device if necessary.
Crystal, are you displaying that?
Oh, am I not?
I'm not seeing it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Here you go.
Yeah,
Can you
much
guys see it
better.
now?
Thanks.
Okay,
Yeah.
fabulous. Okay, so this is kind of what the beginning of the course would look like. We have a few different ones. Claudia is working on something for cataloging, and Dawn is working on some other courses as well, including like a timeline of SWAN. And so we've just started this, and we've been in development. So you guys are getting the sneak peek behind the scenes. With this group specifically, Circ Advisory, there will be a time where I will call on you all for assistance with creating some scenarios, since I have to reach a little bit further now back into my memory of those fun times at the circulation desk when something goes wonky. So I'm just gonna kind of walk you through a little bit. You'll get like an introduction, and these things kind of will appear. It's very nice and clean. In our first lesson, we're talking about searching for a user, and you get kind of these like checklists of like what you can expect within this lesson. Then we do a step-by-step in this case. And what's nice is you'll be able to see a video of how to do everything. And I don't believe you can hear it, but it is a recording of me speaking. And then, it'll walk you through step by step, and I'm giving an instruction. Underneath it is the script, so everything that I've said, and then you can go ahead and continue. And then what's cool about this is we can include a try it. So what you can't hear, I don't believe you can hear right now, but there's a text voice speaking to you and asking you to do the first step. And so based off of this script up here, it's telling you to find the display user wizard and where to find it under the circulation menu. So verify the circulation menu is selected. So it is a step-by-step in which your staff can then try it without necessarily being live in workflows. So that's interesting. And I thought that was pretty cool. So not necessarily a quiz, but it does give you some hands-on experience prior to actually being live in workflows. Let me see here. We have some scenarios here. This is kind of a very wonderful scenario, you know, one you probably don't come across too often, of a patron who wants to come into the library and get their library card, and they have everything ready. And they've never had a card before, but it kind of walks them again through their steps that they need to do. And then there's this interaction here where they will have a scenario and then they can go ahead and select specific, they can select either option 1 or option 2, and based off of that, they'll get a, you know, they'll get another prompt, or they'll be encouraged, you know, by their next step. So what's interesting about this one, in the scenario 2, this one is a little more complex, so it's a little bit more of a difficult situation. We do have, you know, a patron that's come into the library, and, you know, in this case, his name's David, and he's lost. He has a previous card with a lost item on it, and how, you know, what, in this case, Stephanie, she's the clerk, and what her perspective might be, and what the patron's perspective will be, or could be, and just kind of gives you your staff, this real life example of what they might come across. So, you know, there's a few different ones in here, and it's just kind of interesting. And then we'll go to this kind of interactive scenario, which your staff can go ahead and you know, see if they can help Donna get a library card. And, you know, we don't necessarily give them an answer all of the time. A lot of times it could be, you know, you need to talk with your supervisor and make sure that if you're making exceptions, that it goes in line with, you know, whatever your in-house procedures and policies are. So that's just, you know, constantly reiterated. It's this underlining sort of like subcontext in there, that, you know, to make sure that you're in line and know when you can and should not make exceptions on things. So there will be times when, you know, I will have to pick your brains, and there'll be kind of like a format of which I ask for some scenarios and help with that. But I just wanted to give you all a quick glimpse into what the training is looking like for our future courses and development. And, you know, we had talked briefly last time we met in person and went over, you know, kind of trainings and what you want to see developed. And so that's kind of where these are being based off of. So, you know, we went with the webinar version, you know, the live demonstrations, and now we're going to create something that is a little more take home and developed a little bit further to give staff that interaction.
Hey, Crystal, do you have any examples of like reinforcement to check if the learner has grasped concepts?
Yeah, we have a few different options available. So with a new user registration, you know, we have our basic step-by-steps out. What's good about this is that sometimes these type of things, people can just scroll, act like they know everything, and then move on. and we're able to add some kind of like blocks in there. We're also able to kind of keep interest by offering these clicks. And then we have quizzes to get to. So we have this like testing your knowledge. So, you know, we have the availability to put in something where they can type in their answer. And let's say I said overdue, it'll tell me again. And I would then be able to try and type in the correct one. And then it'll give me my correct option. There is, trying to think where I put all of my, oh, here's another quiz. Based on re-registering an existing user, what fields in the basic info tab should you change to match your library setting? So we develop all of these, you know, and if they clicked all the above, it would tell them that was incorrect and to try again. So, you know, they could once they get the and then they'll get a positive response once they get it right, but they can continuously try. So yeah. So, you know, we walk through how to do reciprocal borrowing registration and the differences between the Chicago Public Library users and, you know, non-SWAN. So yeah, we have quite a bit going on here. And this is just again, a small preview. We'll obviously be doing a lot more and getting these up and rolling. And I might, you know, have to ask you all for some help with those. This is also another option for a quiz that we have. So we try to incorporate some sort of learning check at, you know, in most lessons that we choose here. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to show that off a little bit. It's been a lot of hard work and we're really excited about it. So stay on the lookout for when I ask you all a bunch of questions. Dawn, did you want to add anything about this new training guide or anything like that?
No, we got a question of when, this looks great, when is it going to be available? So Crystal's putting finishing touches on patron management and Claudia's putting finishing touches on creating pre-cats. So we hope to have those out within the next month or so. We will be having them reviewed first by a larger audience inside SWAN. We've had like 3 or 4 people review these so far. So we'll review them internally, take recommendations and make changes, which Crystal and Claudia have been doing with round 1. And then we'll be sending it out to the advisory groups for you all to review them as well. So yeah, we'll be asking for feedback, I would say within this next month. What do you think, Crystal? Does that sound about right?
Absolutely, I think so. You know, for the most part, we just need to do some cleaning up. I like the way that it's interactive. You know, you can have, it's not just necessarily bullet points. You can kind of spice up the content so that your learners aren't, you know, glossing over. We do have like these little flip cards. So just another way of getting information instead of, you know, how to renew a privilege, and you know, these little flip cards, those are fun. Yeah, so we have just a little, and then they'll get a completion. So we have a little ways to go. I'm still going through the first round of edits that I need to do. I have to add some more things in there and just pretty it up, and then we can definitely start getting some more feedback internally and then to everyone else. So yeah, we're excited, and we hope that this, you all enjoy it once it's ready for live action.
Just to share some immediate feedback with you, Crystal, a few people have entered in the chat that this is amazing and very impressive. So,
thanks.
And I'll say I was one of the lucky Swan staff to run through it. Crystal let me see it, and it's actually really fun too. So I think your staff will really like it once it's available.
Thanks, Sam. Okay, if there aren't any questions on that, I'm going to move on to the coming up election, kind of giving the time frame on that, and just walking through some changes to the charge. Okay. So the election is coming up. We will, let me start, I guess, with the charge here. Sam and I have really looked at this group and kind of what the needs are for the consortia, and decided to kind of rework the charge that we have all worked with for the past couple of years now. With the help of Erin and Dawn, we did talk and reword this a little bit and kind of looked at this group as general leaders for the consortia who have a few key principles in mind. One of the bigger changes I'm just going to note real quick is that I don't know how many years ago now, a while ago, this group used to have 9 members, and then we've kind of expanded and added a few here and there, and we're looking to make this a very tight group again, and more focused, and where everyone has kind of these principles and guidelines that they're following and can assist in creating policy, the CERC policy, as well as obviously assistance with these trainings and, mentoring of other libraries that either join or need a little assistance here and there with certain, common practices that might be lacking. So we're also going to cut down the amounts of meetings. It seems that, we have a lot of user groups. There are a lot of ways we don't want to overtax anyone and make them unable to attend something where they want to because they have to reserve time for a circulation meeting. We do have 2 circulation groups, this advisory group in which you're elected, and you'll have more of a working charge and tasks. And then, we have the circulation user groups that's run by a member, and we do have that arena for different topics and a breeding ground for ideas to then possibly bring up in circulation advisory. So the 2 big changes, 9 members and 4 times a year. So we'll be meeting quarterly as opposed to every other month. This stays the same. Anyone that's elected, the members are on a 2-year term on a rotating basis. And what had come out of talking with Erin and Dawn was, this group, and Erin, I think you're here, feel free to jump in at any time, was that this group should be able to be asked and ready to volunteer for any small strategic task forces that, you know, Swan or Aaron may need and call to form. So this is not something that, you know, is kind of like a passive thing that you kind of just show up to. Like if you want, and if you're thinking about running again, or you're in the audience here and you're thinking that this is something that you want to be part of, this is a commitment that we want you to be able to take into account when you're deciding on whether or not you would like to be considered and self-nominate. So we're leading with these big principles here of consensus building, which leads to constructive progress. So we will not always agree on everything, but when we're talking about things like missing hold shelf user or missing in transit, things like that, we're not just, you know, we're looking at the progress and the progression of this and how it's and how a general consensus is, while it may not work for an individual library, and that is important, we have to look at a much bigger picture, which leads us to this consortium-wide perspective that we have to keep in mind, and bringing us back to this patron experience. You know, overall, that is what we keep coming back to, is what's best for the patrons. And when we're creating anything, any of our practices or common goals, you know, how does that affect our patrons and how does that work for them? And then, you know, we've heard your voice in terms of you want cooperation between, you know, the other advisory groups and how that creates a better consortia. So we have listed here some topics for the coming 2021 year to focus on, and that will definitely be a meeting of the minds in terms of gathering information from different advisory groups and bringing all of that into one, and making sure that, you know, voices are heard from each advisory group when we are tackling specific topics like item types or something like that. So okay, are there any questions so far?
Crystal, this is Aaron. I just want to speak to the group, and I think this 2021 focus, I think, is good. We've seen in the past with Circuit Advisory some real success when the group has kind of come together and had some kind of like tighter focus on like training. There's a lot of you that are new to Swan here, but in the past we've had great success with some training initiatives, such as the Cirque du Swan and other types of training events. You know, the pandemic, of course, puts us on different kind of footing. So I think what you're building, Crystal, with the online training is going to work very, very well for circulation advisory members over this next year. We're going to really need your input. And also some of this focus is coming from that Clarity Task Force, which probably many of you are aware of. A big part of that initiative was to really look at our item types. And I think if you had seen that Clarity presentation at the quarterly meeting September of last year, they really were noting, you know, some, you know, unhappy users at circulation desk and how difficult that was for circulation staff to manage. And, you know, the item type consolidation is part of that. So we are going to be working on item types with our CAT, you know, advisory group. And so it just makes sense. We're going to also have Circ Advisory, you know, look at this as well. So thank you, Crystal, for working on this charge. I will end my comments, open this up for others to in the group to talk about.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, feel free to, advisory members, feel free to mute yourself if you'd like to. Sam, myself, Dawn, and Aaron kind of looked at what our focuses should be, and obviously this list can grow, but this is just a starting point for sure. Is we're looking at item type consolidation, and Sam is going to really be kind of the person spearheading that. There have been, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. That's an agenda topic as well. We could possibly review messaging for circulation transactions. And, one of them was developing and reviewing of online training and kind of making sure that those things are developed and, scenarios are appropriate for, those are real life things and not something we just make up. And then, the management, patron management, including, school cards, student cards, this digital only world now that we're working with and living in for the foreseeable future, and how we can better those experiences for our patrons. So, all of these topics, they're not just based off of circulation, which we'll probably grab Helen and Robin and even from our SWAN staff and make these meetings more robust and really incorporate, everyone and make more of a fluid recommendation when we give our recommendations then to Aaron for improvements that we see that we need.
Hi, this is Debbie Sheehan.
Hi, Debbie.
I just want to speak real quick to what Aaron was saying about the work that Circ Advisory has done in the past. So I've been on Circ Advisory for a very long time, and I was involved in most of those other initiatives. And for people that are newer, you couldn't have asked for anything better. It not only brings you together as a cohesive group to work forward on whatever our charges are, but for you as a Circ manager, I feel like I have lasting friendships and relationships with other libraries where I can easily call them if I have questions or if I just have a brain freeze and I can't remember something. So, if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure that that's really what I want to do, I highly, highly, highly recommend that you think again, because it's been a great experience from my perspective.
Thank you, Debbie. I have to second what Debbie said. I started as a circulation manager, and I think I sat out, from running the first year or so when I was at my previous job, and I, sat back and kind of watched the interaction and then decided to run, and I've learned so much. I had learned so much from that group, and then at the time we had started going, searching for a new ILS, and, just the camaraderie and you never feel like you have to be in a position where you don't know an answer, because you have a big team that can help you fill that. So it's a great experience for sure, for anyone who's out there and thinking of running or sitting on the fence about it. It's definitely a great experience, and I think with this new charge and some more focused meetings and topics, that I think that we can really, that you would really have a good group here to grow and just learn and bring new ideas forth. So if you're out there and you're thinking about running, we have this self-nomination. I'm going to open that in early October. And we, like I said, we'll be tightening this group down to 9 advisory group members. Like was in the past, we have a few seats open, and we will only be filling 4 in this election. So Tom's seat is open, Stephanie's seat, Cheryl, Brittany, and Sue. All those seats are open. And so we are ready and gearing up for all of that. It's going to be exciting. Here are the meeting dates for 2021. We'll have one in January, March, July, and November. So, you know, kind of the same time frame. If we have a specific topic that might go a little longer, you know, we'll definitely cover that, but we'll for sure try to keep these, you know, the same time frame, same kind of, you know, on a Wednesday, what you're all used to. So there isn't hopefully too much rearranging of your schedules. Okay, are there any questions about the charge and the changes? No, Sam, did I miss anything? Did you want to chime in with any of that?
No, I think you covered everything very well, and I don't see any unanswered questions in the pane either.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so self-nominations will start in early October. And then what usually happens for anyone who's not familiar with the process, we'll open self-nominations, give you about 2 weeks to hand those in. And what they will be is you just kind of give a little bio of yourself and why you want to run and how you would serve this group. And then we'll close that out and start an election. A few days after self-nomination closes, we'll start an election, and then everyone will have a couple of weeks to go ahead and vote. And then by the November meeting, the new members will be announced. So look out for those dates. Those will be sent out SwanCom style, so everyone can get an opportunity to throw their name in the hat. So I don't want anyone to feel like, you know, if you're newer, that you shouldn't throw your name in the hat. It's not necessarily just, you know, you've been a manager for years and years and years. That's not, you know, I think I ran after I was there for like a year and a half in my position. So it really, for me, from my perspective, I think, you know, at any stage, you kind of can offer a new perspective, something we might not have thought about. So all are welcome. Look out for those SwanComs. Okay, doing pretty good on time here. Going to move on to our item type consolidation. And for that, I'm going to stop talking and drink some water since I'm parched. And Sam's going to take over.
Okay. Yeah, so as Crystal said, when we redid the charge and we added that focus for 2021, one of the topics that we plan to discuss, and as Erin noted, which came out of the Clarity Task Force observations, has to do with item types and consolidation. This is a topic that's been broached at this group a number of times over my years with SWAN, with varying degrees of success. I know there was an Atlas group a while back that did something similar to this that also incorporated circulation rules and doing consistency. So what we're looking at as we're trying to systematically approach our list of item types and do a number of things that all have to do with consolidation. Basically, our first phase was to look at which item types were used pretty low across the consortium, so ones where we had maybe 100 or fewer across all of our libraries cataloged with this type. And so we considered maybe these can be removed, and we did some reaching out to libraries to that effect. And then we have some item types that are probably phased out just because of the nature of the type it is, such as audio cassette. You know, many of you don't really have audio cassettes anymore. So we're looking at the possibility of removing things like that. And we have focused mainly on video item types. And I did a sort of analysis of all of the item types that are in use that are video format, which I think off the top of my head, there are 37 item types that are DVD or Blu-ray specifically, and video. And what we found across the board was that most libraries, if not all, are not circulating DVDs and Blu-rays differently. And I keep coming back to circulation because the purpose of an item type is not necessarily to catalog what the item is. I mean, it is. They are format based, so I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but a lot of the information about what an item is and what a title is, that's in the bibliographic record. That's what your patrons are using to search for and locate items. We even have, we have item categories that do a little more statistical definition of what an item is. So the item type main purpose is really to drive circulation. So what we found is that DVDs and Blu-rays are largely circulating the same. No one's really saying, okay, a Blu-ray goes out for 3 days, but a DVD goes out for 7, especially now that there are so many streaming platforms. And even though people definitely still check out videos, it's not the same type of world we were living in when Blu-ray was new, for example. So what we did is we worked with the 3 new libraries coming into SWAN in December, and we analyzed their data and decided they could be trailblazers, which they are. And so we have put them on this new video item type model. And what that is going to look like is condensing 37 item types down to about 6, and stripping out DVD and Blu-ray from the item type level and allowing that to live in the bibliographic record, and instead using terminology like video or video set for a box set or video new for a new video, things like that. So those libraries are actually coming in with that model. That model is in use right now. It is live. Those item types exist in our production server. And we've also gotten requests, as we've sort of talked about this at fireside chats. We've talked about it at cataloging advisory as well. So we've gotten some requests from some libraries that are interested in this, and they're considering moving to this model. If you are one of them, or if you have any questions, you're definitely able to do that as soon as you're physically able. So you could send in a ticket, say, hey, I heard about this item consolidation effort, I'm interested. And what we'll do is we'll set up a go-to meeting with you. That ticket will likely get passed to me, and I will evaluate your item type list. I will evaluate your circulation and hold maps. I'll also ask you questions about statistics. So we need to make sure that nothing is taken away by moving to this model. We want it to only make things better for you. So if your library that needed to run statistics based on certain things and this wouldn't work for you, we'd want to make sure we have those answers out the gate so we don't accidentally take away functionality that you need. So in addition to handling these by request, which is where we're at right now, like I just said, we're also incorporating this discussion into our find free discussion. So Vicki, who's here today, if she wants to chime in, she can, of course, usually sets those up. So if you are a library that was interested in going find free, you might have already had a conversation with her, or if you're one that has an active ticket, she will set up a meeting with you to discuss that. And at the same time, I'll go over your item type consolidation options. So yeah, that's kind of where we are with that. And this is going to be a big focus for us next year for the advisory group members.
Hey, Sam, I just put out in the Q&A if anybody has already started this process with you, if they want to talk about it, kind of go over the process from the library's perspective. I think it would be helpful to hear from
I think we have at least one. So yeah, if anyone wants to chime in.
Yeah, Brittany, I can chime in. I actually am in the with Sam, Brittany from Westmont. Yeah, no, it was great. So we had actually consolidated some item types just back in May or April because we actually went find free. But I had reached out because we needed to add an item type. So Sam had offered this meeting to kind of go over what our options are. And it's awesome. I think, I got lucky in that, one, our head of adult services doesn't care what I do, but our head of youth services actually came from Geneva, who had gone through this process with eventually we're migrating over. So when I went to go talk to her through some of these things like eliminating juvenile item types because that information is elsewhere, she was like, oh yeah, I totally understand. We went through this at Geneva. It's great. So it's just nice to be able to look at everything and figure out how to downsize your circ map and in a way that like doesn't affect anything. A lot of our items circ the same, and really what it comes down to is if a lot of things circ the same, they don't really need different item types. There are other ways to differentiate items. So I would definitely say, even if you're not necessarily thinking about changing in an active way, I would suggest even meeting with them just to see and get a breakdown of whatever all your item types are and how they circulate. Because honestly, when we did it for Find Free, it was nice to kind of get that background and let it click exactly how these things work. Because you look at the circ map and you look at the holds map and you're like, what is that? How does this even work? So I highly recommend taking some time out to talk with them to just get a better handle on what your item types are so that you can make some decisions if it makes sense to be able to change some.
Yeah, thanks, Brittany. And I will say too, from I think every meeting we've had, it's really nice to be able to just dig into your library specific information, rather than sitting in a meeting and hearing all these things. We can actually run lists of all your items. We can even customize your drop-down menu if there's some item types that are lingering in there that you really don't need, and maybe catalogers have made a mistake when assigning an item type. So we can really dig deep and really look at what you need and make things the best they can be for you.
So I just want to say something. I'm Sandra from ALSIP. I agree with Brittany. So we are part of the one of the libraries who did the Atlas checkout 3 weeks, 2 weeks, and 1 week. So after we did that, every different type of item that we include in our collection, we really try to make sure it fits with an item type that we currently have. And I would say I'm lucky too, because I decide what item types we use, just of course with the approval of the other department managers, but it's really nice to try to eliminate, going through 25 item types when all DVDs could go in one. And as we're talking about this, nonfiction is the perfect scenario. In our library, nonfictions are shelves, intrafile with the books, but they have different due dates with the books and DVDs. So it would be nice if we just consolidate them too, just so they have just same due dates, for example, instead of creating a confusion of what one item is checked out differently than the other. So it takes time, but it helps staff overall. And I use the saying that I'm not always going to be at ALSIP, or another person could replace me and they can change everything completely. So it's better just to start something now and make it better for the library. So in the future, if you decide to go somewhere else, you started something that is improving everyone's workflow, because obviously tech services affects circ and reference. So if we can make everyone's life easier, this could be the beginning of it.
Great,
Yeah.
thank you.
So if no one has any other comments, yeah, if you are interested, or if you even just have questions, go ahead and send in a ticket to help@swanlibraries.net. And just to let you know, I think we are, within the next few weeks, we'll have about, I think, 5 libraries using this, including the new 3. So it is catching on a little bit and gaining some momentum. And so we're pretty excited about it, and we hope you are too.
This is Brittany, one last plug, because I feel like it's all this, I just thought of this, is really like, this is a great opportunity to be able to bring this idea to your library. I know not everyone, Sandra and I are lucky that we are also in charge of tech services, so that we can kind of make a lot of the determinations that maybe not everyone can, depending on the structure of like your management team. But I think this is a perfect opportunity to bring those discussions to your management team, especially right now where we're still in the middle of all of this. When we went Find Free, we also decided to make our DVDs and video games 3 weeks to really minimize the types of checkout periods we had, and that's not going to fit for every library, but I think this is a great opportunity to bring that to your other managers and talk through these things and say these things like tech services affects CERC, affects adult services, affects youth services. This all affects all of us. So it's a nice kind of jumping off point to have these conversations that sometimes become disjointed because there's so many players in the game.
Thanks, Brittany. If nobody has any other questions, I guess we can probably move on to material quarantine, but feel free to ask questions in the pane as well.
All right. Hi, y'all. I'm back. I'm actually going to, we put this on initially when we were building the agenda when the Realm study came out and everything kind of changed a little bit in terms of how long to quarantine. So I did include a link for the agenda to the special emergency fireside that we had, where we kind of went over the quarantine and curbside quarantine user and kind of the layout of it. I do have both Dawn and Vicky here for they really understand it. So if anyone has any questions, or Vicky, if you wanted to speak on anything in particular about that.
Sure. I just wanted to give a rundown about the changes that we've made to try to help your patrons out during the extended quarantine now that Rails is requiring a 7-day quarantine before items go into delivery. So we've done a few things for the fine-free libraries or fine-free for now libraries, where patrons are getting blocked at any item 14 days overdue. We have increased that to 21 days overdue. So they won't be hitting that block because their item is in quarantine, unless they've returned it really late anyway. So we have put that in place, and we did at the beginning, we moved the first notices out to 14 days rather than 7 days overdue, so that hopefully that's cutting down on the overdue notices patrons would receive when they've already returned the item. For those libraries that are not fine-free, we have, I'll let Dawn talk about that a little more because it's something that we just did, and I think she should, it's something that she spearheaded, but I think it was a great idea. But we are taking care of you as well. We do have, I believe we're at now 25 libraries that had requested a quarantine user for their library. And checking today, we have a little over 4,000 items checked out to quarantine, with 12 libraries actively using it. So if that's something that you'd be interested in doing at your library, again, to just help the patron experience and cut down on the calls that you're getting from patrons saying, why am I getting this overdue notice, or why am I blocked? I already returned the items. That would definitely eliminate those issues. And Dawn, do you want to talk about our non-fine free solution now? Well, not
Sure.
solution, but helping
Sure. So
tool.
for the non-fine free, hopefully you guys saw your SwanCom this morning. We implemented this yesterday, so it went into effect with the overnight processing. We verified this morning. So rather than changing our CERC map, we did not make any changes to the CERC map. What we did is, behind the scenes, Dave changed the rules, or really the parameters, the settings of those CERC maps. Or those CERC rules, I'm sorry, so that every grace period that was 0 days got extended to be 7 days, and any 3-day grace period got extended to 8. So that basically means we can undo this when the pandemic is all over. We can undo that and go back to our standard setting just as easily. But Now patrons will not, for that 7-day grace period, they're not going to see fines accruing on their account. If they return the item before the grace period is up, and when I say return, I'm basically meaning if that item is checked in at your library before that grace period is up, then they are not going to have any fine associated with their returns. If it is checked in after the grace period, then that entire 7 days of fines are recalculated and applied. So basically, we're just accounting for those 7 days when you have that kind of period where items could be in quarantine, where you don't want the patron to see that they have a fine accruing on their record. We do remind you in the news post that it's still a good idea at the day that you take items out of quarantine, have your check-in day match the date that they went into quarantine. That just keeps everybody in sync so that patrons are actually acknowledged that they did return it, when they put it in the book drop. So check out the news post and the SwanCom. Hopefully that gives libraries the flexibility that were fine-free for now and want to go back to their pre-COVID circulation rules. You can now do that knowing that your patrons have that 7-day grace period.
And that grace period is what allows what stops your patron from being blocked from those wonderful estimated fines that we all love so much, right? Because they make so much sense. There's no bills on the patron's record, but why does it say I owe $3? So you don't have those conversations as much then.
Great. Does anyone have any questions? Anyone from the group? Feel free to unmute yourself. I know there was a lot of confusion at first. You guys probably have already gotten a handle on it, but I didn't want to just not mention anything about it. So thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Dawn. Okay, group members, do you all have any announcements or anything you want to add right now? We do have the time, so feel free to unmute yourselves. Anything you guys are doing fun and exciting at your library? Just hanging on.
I guess I'll just give a little plug to something Bloomingdale is going to be doing because I do think it's kind of cool. We usually do a big Halloween party every year, but obviously this year we can't. So we're going to partner with our village and our fire department and our police department. We're going to do a drive-through Halloween party in our parking lot. So there will be a Saturday morning for those of you that are near us where Bloomingdale won't be open because we'll be doing our big drive-through Halloween party.
Oh, that's cool. So what's that gonna look like? People
Like,
can.
I guess people are gonna. I haven't seen the final plans, but people are gonna drive through, and there's gonna be like costume characters, and every kid's gonna get a pumpkin and like a book and a bag of candy, and so basically just the Halloween party without having to actually interact with anybody.
Yeah. That's cool. That'll be fun.
I think you should make it a car wash with everyone in costume.
Only if I'm gonna get paid extra to do that. I'm charging per car.
I'd pay to see Frankenstein wash my car.
Anyone else?
So Eisenhower is doing something kind of neat, but I'm dreaming of scarecrows right now. We're doing instead of like a Halloween party, we're doing some events around Halloween, and one of them is we're going to hand out kits where patrons can build a scarecrow, and then they can build their scarecrow at home and then bring it back to the library. And we're going to decorate the library property with all these scarecrows. And then after about a week or so, patrons can come back and get their scarecrows and then take them home and use them, you know, decorate their own homes with them. So it's kind of a neat project that we're doing. But the only thing is I have to sew all the scarecrow heads
Oh,
for the patrons. So at night, I swear to God, I'm dreaming of scarecrows because I had to figure out how to like make the scarecrow head. But we're basically giving people like the sticks in the scarecrow head, and then they can take home like these kits and embellish them and then bring them back to the library. So it's kind of a neat thing we're doing. So we're doing that. We're going to have like a drive-in movie, and we're going to have youth services is going to have like a fall craft that kids can take home and do. So we're trying to think of, you know, do some other things this October, since we know Halloween's going to kind of be a bummer for people.
yeah.
So it should be fun.
It sounds fun.
Yeah. So if you're in the area in the middle of October, drive by our library. We should have tons of scarecrows decorating our property. Well, not tons, some scarecrows, and hopefully all their heads stay on and don't scare small children.
You guys can just transition to a haunted house if all their heads fall off.
Yeah, it'll probably cause, you know, permanent trauma to small children. It'll all be my fault. So
That's hilarious. Well, they'll be traumatized some other way. So,
yeah.
anyone else have anything fun going on? Looks like Chicago Ridge is 5 weeks away from beginning their renovation. That is exciting.
And we can unmute anybody if you raise your hand, since this is open forum.
So at ALSIP, our fund begins October 1st. We're reopening to only residents for the first 2 weeks, appointment basis only. And then we'll see what's the feedback from there and see what our next stage is to open more hours or allow more patrons to the building. So
How are you going to police that?
so we're locked. So our doors will remain locked, and there will be someone at the by the doors with the list of the people who have appointments, and then we'll be just checking them off. And then if we have appointments available, they can do as a walk-in. But we really don't know what's going to happen. We just have to see. You know, we might have to change something after the first day if that doesn't work out. So everything is like day by day. So yeah, so that's our plans right now. That's what we're working currently.
Great, thank you.
I had a question for Swan.
Yeah.
Do we have a date set that we're going to resume allowing non-Swan reciprocal borrowers to place holds through Enterprise?
That's fun. That's a
Yes,
fun question.
We are looking at that next week, and that's actually a good thing to get all of your feedback on. We had initially said that we would do it the week after we had that second or that third wave of resource sharing turning back on. We postponed it a week because of the increase to the 7-day quarantine. So this is a great topic to get your feedback on. What do you all feel? Are you ready to do that? Should we ask at our September fireside, which is I think September 29th, to gauge if people are ready? So open it up for thoughts and discussion.
Bloomingdale would be in favor of starting this as soon as possible. Because we're getting some really unfortunate feedback from our friends over at Roselle and Glenside, who I understand will be part of Swan, but currently aren't. and are kind of upset that they don't have the same freedom that they would expect now that we're open our regular hours again.
Gotcha.
Eisenhower
I
would,
think,
I'm sorry, Eisenhower would love to see this start as soon as possible. We have a lot of reciprocal borrowing patrons, and they've been very vocal about wanting to have this capability back. So we'd like to see it start as soon as possible.
Westmont and Oak Lawn concur.
Matson doesn't have a huge population, but we're good to have it turned on whenever.
And Bensonville's
I
the
know
same as
Joyce.
Matson.
okay. Yeah, Batavia would like it as soon as possible. I think we misunderstood and thought that it was going to be starting sooner, and we're hoping that we can get it up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, seems like so far in the chat, everyone is full steam ahead, Dawn.
Okay, well, if everyone's full steam ahead, I think we'll talk internally. And honestly, it's really just about 10 minutes of Michael's work and 10 minutes of his colleagues check-in to make sure we're all go. So we can do it at any time. We were hearing some reluctance with the increase in quarantine, but it sounds like you're all ready. So I think we'll go ahead, get that looped in and let y'all know.
Thanks, Don.
And for those libraries that don't want to do it, it's really just a matter of just not filling, those, not pulling those items. So I think we'll just have some instructions and get that ready this week.
Great, thank you. Great question, Stephanie. Does anyone on the SWAN staff want to say anything or? Okay. Well, if there's nothing left, I think we can call it a day. We can meet again on November 18th. Again, all of our meetings are right here, and meetings and documents on the SWAN website. So throughout the rest of this year, you will be able to click and then register within the actual meeting date, just so you're all aware. Okay. Anything else? Anything I'm missing? Sam, Dawn, Vicky, Helen, Erin? Before I let them all go?
Nothing for me.
Great. Okay, thank you. Well, thanks everyone. As always, we're here. We're just one help ticket away. So if you need us in the meantime, feel free to reach out and we'll see you soon, I'm sure. All right. Talk to you all later.
Thank you.